So hopefully the audio sounds better. We think we fixed it. As you can see, construction has happened.
Once again, more set details had to be changed in order for us to continue doing what we want to do.
Yeah, the microphones approached. They're encroaching. They're getting real close and personal with us. But hopefully that means nice crisp audio, no echo. We'll hopefully with them right here, kind of have a reminder not to blow out the microphones because we're hopefully not yelling right in your guys' faces with them right here.
Yes, intentional is to have a nice, consistent audio level and not be blowing out everybody's eardrums with either blowing out the microphones or echoing to hell. So hopefully this will be a much better setup. We have readjusted where our mounts are for our boom arms, so microphones are coming much closer. Not as much fidgeting around. You'll have to excuse my ADHD.
Yeah, so thank you guys for being patient. A lot of this is, yeah, we can fix little things, but a big part of it's just going to be practice of like
Yes.
keeping the mic in a spot to be able to hear it well, or at least keep it consistent. Because I think the audio has been coming through pretty good for the most part,
Oh
apart
yeah.
for the echo.
There's
It's just
some issues.
consistency.
Yeah, it's just our consistency. We are trying our absolute best to make sure that our quality is up to par. So bear with us for a few episodes at least until we can nail that down.
Yeah, but hey, for the most part, the episode sounds good. I would say even the echoey bits, they're not terrible.
Oh yeah.
It just isn't what we would like them to be. But
Just a
we
little
appreciate
more.
you guys watching them, and we're gonna keep fixing, keep growing as we go. As you can see, this is the second episode, or we just finished recording the second episode, and we're
It's-
still making adjustments.
It,
So
it'll be a constant update, and we appreciate you guys, sticking with us through this. If you want to see us get better and keep growing, as the old saying goes, smash that like button. Hit that notification bell. Hopefully, we'll see you in some more quality episodes coming up shortly.
yes, goodbye. Greetings and welcome to the Sorry You're Wrong podcast, where we're going to talk about nerdy stuff, video games, anime, just kind of what we've been doing, what we've been enjoying lately. With me today, I have the usual Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the show. Jen, why don't you go ahead and tell us what's on our agenda for today?
So, today we figured we'd hit you guys with just kind of a introductory podcast, who are we? Get to know us. What's the podcast going to be? What are we going to talk about? That kind of thing. And so, in order to do that, we're going to run you through our typical agenda. So, we're going to be hitting 5 topics as we go through podcasts. So, we're going to give you guys hey, what have we been playing lately? Where we're going to kind of recap what video games we've been playing in the last little bit since, we did an episode. That could be, oh, hey, I'm playing a new video game. Or maybe that's just, hey, this is the progress I've made in a video game. Because, games are big these days.
Oh gosh, yeah, and the amount of open world games that come out every year, and this year's gonna be a big one.
Yeah, and so then once we roll through that, kind of catch you guys up on what we've been playing, get each other's opinions on, hey, should you check this out, that kind of thing. We're going to hop into the topic of the show, whatever we kind of feel like discussing, whether it be, hey, do you feel like the Ewoks should have been able to take out the stormtroopers? It's a hot button issue for Kevin, and maybe we'll discuss it. Maybe I won't let him hit you guys with it.
There are issues. Star Wars, king of plot holes.
So then next we're going to hit you with, hey, I've been watching a weird anime. I'm going to tell you about this weird anime and why you should watch it also. Because, a lot of people don't watch anime because they're like, oh, it's weird. It's got, this or that. I'm going to tell you why, yes, anime is weird. But hey, this is why you should, in fact, watch it. Because of the weirdness.
And show you just how hard it is to just describe an anime to another human being.
Saying some of the stuff that happens in anime out loud, I will specifically get my wife and tell her about an anime that I'm watching just to watch her go, what the fuck?
Just what? Somebody put that into a show?
Yes, they did. And we're going to talk about it. Our final one, because see, here's the thing. As I told you that we have 5. Technically going through this, we have 4. But I'm leaving room for a 5th one because inevitably I feel like we're going to add in different topics or that kind of thing as we become very passionate about something somewhere along the list that we feel like discussing. So maybe it's we talk about two anime. Maybe it's we have two subjects. Maybe we talk about the next one, which is weird video games. How did this get made? Who's playing this?
Who made this and why? Who's the target demographic for this weird game you found in the back alley corners of Steam on a weird sale that seemed to pop up every other weekend? And you know at this point you couldn't help but add it to your immensely and ever-growing Steam collection.
Yeah, so those are going to be our topics, and leave some wiggle room. Maybe it'll be 4, maybe it'll be 5, but we could be hitting on 2 weird games, 2 topics of the show, or maybe 2 anime that you just have to watch because, my God, is it weird.
Or those one-off occasions where you let me talk about the thermal exhaust port of the Death Star.
That was something to go through and edit.
I bet. Oh.
So if you guys haven't seen, we have a bloopers and getting ready for the podcast video that we put up, lovingly entitled Episode 0. And that episode took us months to get ready. And there was well over, I think it was close to 3 hours of video that I sifted through to make about, I think it's like a 16-minute video?
Yeah, I was about to say it's about a 10 to 12-minute video.
Yeah, so I lovingly brought it down, giving you guys a highlight reel of some of the better moments. And we'd appreciate if you guys checked that out. If you wanted to see, holy crap, how did we get to this point? Because my gosh, it took a while. There was a lot of iterations.
It was a challenge. It was an up and down process. We had changed sets at least 4 times in one small room. Learning how to set up lighting has been an incredible experience.
Oh, the lighting. Alrighty, so because this is an introductory podcast, what we're going to do is rather than hitting those topics that we just discussed, as we typically would in a podcast, instead we're going to do this as like a introductory, hey, get to know me and Kevin, kind of see what, these episodes are going to be like. What are we like? And so to start this off, we're going to talk about, Kevin, what kind of video games do you enjoy playing?
I'm a huge fan of open world sandbox games. I will give you, sandbox games don't quite mean what they used to. I remember back in the day, you could play something like Mercenaries 2. Oh, Mercenaries 2. That's the game from the PS2 you would spend half your life on if you were a child. You could destroy everything. There's something about doing a mission for one country and then just blowing up their embassies because you felt like it at the end of the mission. Well, you were done. Why not?
It feels like it was an early iteration of what Just Cause turned into.
Yes, I was actually thinking that. I was like, Just Cause was probably the inevitable outcome from Mercenaries, which, I loved it because it had a point. You hunted down the 52 card stack of all the most wanted people from the military, and so much fun. You'd waste a lot of time on it. But I feel like we are in such a golden age of video games right now. When you can go on to Steam and they're having a sale every other weekend, and you can watch your Steam library go from 1 game to 200 just because you decided to get it on some publisher sales. I have recently bought the entire Red Faction series, all of it. I wanted to play Armageddon, but they had them all on sale, so I figure why not buy all of them?
How many games are in the Red Faction series? It's at least like 6, right?
As far as I know, 6 because there's a remake.
Oh, okay.
Because I believe it was Red Faction Guerrilla they went ahead and remastered, and it's beautiful. It is. It's actually really nice. Right now, high up on my replay game value right now, I want to replay the new Dead Space. I heard that there's a new alternate ending that you can get. I don't know anything else about it. I haven't bought the game yet, and I'm going to try and avoid that spoiler until I get there.
So, Kevin, with you talking about Dead Space, how do you feel about scary video games?
I have a huge collection of them. I love them. High up on my need to play right now is the Castillo Protocol. I surprisingly got it for free buying an AMD graphics card. Buy an AMD graphics card on occasion when they're on sale at Best Buy, and they'll give you a few games. I got the new Dead Island 2 and the Castillo Protocol.
Is it Castillo or I thought it was
Castillo?
Callisto?
Oh, the Callisto. That's right.
Okay.
You're right.
Don't worry, guys. I
Yeah,
caught it. Don't
it's
put it in the
fine.
comments.
It's
Don't put it in
fine.
the comments.
Yes. The Callisto Protocol. See, I haven't even played it yet. It's just been free in my ready to download in my 200 and something queue of library for Steam games, and I've just been meaning to play. The latest one I played and beat was Soma.
I remember you telling me you really enjoyed that.
Soma was very good. If you're a fan of psychological horror games, especially, I mean, it's a scary setting, but it gets you in the existential dread. That's where you want your games to hit you, because things are scary. Yeah, think about Dead Space. Yeah, Necromorphs, scary. The entire premise of Dead Space, even scarier. The thought of being the only species in the universe, terrifying. Terrifying. Knowing that we're gonna have to break apart asteroids and planets to collect freaking materials at some point in time, weirdly scary. And it's that interesting existential dread that they lay behind. Or like Soma, for instance. Spoilers for the Soma. It's been out for many, many years. Hopefully people have played it by now if you're into that kind of game.
Yep, recently out on Games Pass. Go check it out.
Yep. So it messes with your perception of your own life. Like, what are you? Who are you? Starts off with a character who's dying of cancer. And he is getting a brain scan. Once he gets that brain scan, he instantly wakes up about 150 years in the future after an asteroid has impacted the planet. And you and a bunch of other human beings that have been phased into machines are trying to launch something known as the Ark. It's basically a large series of human consciousness to orbit the planet so that humanity can live on in some small way.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're going through this, mind you, you're just a normal person. You're not supposed to be anybody special. You're just someone. And it turns out the guy who took your brain scan used your brain for AI research. And you were created by a system trying to stop the Ark from launching. Obviously, it didn't work out too well. I mean, I believe you can choose to launch it or not. I'm not quite sure. I always feel bad playing the bad guy. I don't know why. I know it's a video game, but you got to be nice to people. Don't be mean to people.
See, that's something that's so funny. So we'll transition to what games I kind of tend to play. And some of the games that were the most affecting of my childhood were games where you had the option to be good or evil. You had multiple things, like Fable. As a kid, my God, did I play the ever-loving shit out of Fable.
But how much of it did you play as the good guy?
So back in the day, I would play everything as the bad guy.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I've always felt so bad.
So I was a very goody-goody two-shoes kid. And so video games was my escapism to get to play as the bad guy. Like whether it was Knights of the Old Republic or Fable, I was all the way as evil as you could get. Whether it be the cracked dark side skin or the fucking bald horns that you would have in Fable. I was all in all the time as a kid on bad guys. As I've gotten older, it is so hard. I did a Mass Effect playthrough on the channel, and the chat chose Renegade. They wanted me to play Renegade. It was so fucking hard to play as a Renegade, dude.
Oh, through Mass Effect?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's so hard.
Because there are some options where it's hell yeah, I want to shoot the dude while he's still talking. But there are other times where it's no, I can't be mean to Morden.
Yeah, right. He doesn't do anything. And then it's you have to sit there and help everybody with every single side quest, because if you don't, they're gonna die, and you don't want anybody to die. You see, it's good because it hits you in your feelings. It hits you in your, see, that's the difference. That's why video games I personally feel why video games have become such a great medium, is because back in the day, people had, pictures. Mm-hmm. And pictures could transport you to anywhere at any time. And that was an amazing thing. And then we made movies. And the movies are the same thing. It just gives you a more immersive feeling of being in a whole new world, a whole new place, a whole new setting around different things and exciting things that you couldn't have in your normal life or normal world. Then, now we've got these games. And these games are incredible. It's so immersive. Like playing a horror movie is something incredible. Playing Outlast, or Outlast 2, for instance, one of my favorite games of all time, is just, it's so in-depth, and you're so scared because you have no idea what anything, even when you go back and replay these things, like, come on, getting thrown off of a balcony just for some freaking gory, scarred-up dude to freaking tie you to a chair and threaten to cut your nads off? Terrifying!
And see, that's one of the things that's so amazing about, like, you talk about how they've evolved and they've like continued on this escapism and being able to transport you to other places I feel like that's got to be why I enjoy games of choice so much. Like I think that's one of my biggest things is like I am a fan of sci-fi games, I'm a fan of fantasy games, I do RPGs, JRPGs, I do occasionally horror games, but I think the big one for me is I like games that my ideal game has two things in it. I need to be able to make choices in the game and have that affect different things.
Yeah.
And then two, I need to be able to build relationships with characters. I am
Okay.
so big into games that like whether it is companions or it's just like characters in the world. Like one of the ones that I've been playing a fair bit recently is the Persona series.
See,
And it is so good for like so this one it's lacking a little bit more of the branching choices. Like the story, you're going to start one place, get to the same place for the ending.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, ways you can go about like in between.
Yeah.
But for the most part I wouldn't necessarily consider it like a choice-based game, but my god there's so many characters to interact with. It's so fun talking to people and like just building those bonds with these fake people.
Building those relationships.
It's so devastating, because like you sit there, and especially once you beat the game, like I'll never forget beating Mass Effect 3 and then sitting here and just being like,
what?
But
what?
But Jack needs me.
But what?
She can't last without me.
I was like, but what are you talking? What do you mean I just die? What do you mean there was a kid inside the Citadel the whole time? Like, we get the Citadel was like the largest mass relay, but I never actually replayed it to get the newer ending. I never bothered.
Yeah, see, I went through, I played Mass Effect 1, I played Mass Effect 2, started playing Triangle Strategy. Fucking hated that game.
Oh, yeah?
Because, see, here's the thing, is so that game pretends to do the two things that I really like in video games. So it pretends like you can build up relationships with characters. And like, yeah, you can do quests for them or that kind of thing. But in the end, it doesn't fucking do anything.
Yeah.
And the biggest slap in the face is the fact that it sits here and it's like, oh, you have choices. You're going to... So the whole thing with it's triangle strategy. So every time you're making a decision, it falls under one of three categories. So it's basically like how they have Renegade, Paragon. Instead, it has, I can't remember what the three are, but it has these three columns basically. And as you make decisions, it puts points into those. And then based on, like, it basically treats them as a skill. So when you choose that, it raises that skill level and that kind of thing. So you're able to like choose harder decisions for that later. Because the whole thing is like for big decisions, your entire party votes for what way they want to do something.
Yeah.
And so you have to go through and try and convince everybody to do it the way you want to do it.
Well, that's interesting.
And so it's like, you start off with like, okay, half of your party is split to where they want to do it this way, the other half wants to do it this way, and then you go and you try and convince the people who don't want to do it the way you do to do it the way you want to do. And see, it sounds really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Except for here's the problem, is when you're making choices, they don't tell you what you're fucking leveling up or what of the three categories it's affecting. And so you sit here and you're like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do this. And then it hits you with a decision and it's like, oh, I want to do it this way. But no matter what you fucking do, your group won't agree. No matter if you hit the perfect thing every single time, they'll be like, no, I just don't agree with you in the end because your skill isn't high enough. But you don't know where your skill is, and you don't know that the one that you're choosing is this skill. You're like, oh, I thought it was this other skill. But you don't know because they never tell you.
Because you
And they
never
have
have
it
the
leveling up
information
in
you
the
actually need.
background. Yeah, and so it's like, what's the fucking point? Like,
Oh, geez, that's rough.
yeah, and so like I got soft locked into doing something a way that I didn't want to, and eventually I was just like, nah,
Screw
fuck it, I
yes.
just won't play the game.
Yeah, because eventually you'll put it down. It's like losing progress. Like Elden Ring, vanilla Elden Ring. I'm sorry, FromSoft, but it's got a problem. Memory loss is something. Like I had a friend recently go through, and he lost almost 2 full days of gameplay in Elden Ring, and I'm not even 100% sure how it happens, but he just lost all that time, and it sucks. Like when you lose. Personally, if I've played a game for the last 3 hours, right, and something crashed, I ended up losing, a few hours worth of gameplay. That's it. That's it for me for a while. I'm gonna put that game down.
Yep.
Until I feel the need to play it again, because especially replaying segments of games is just, especially linear games like.
Right, especially when it's like, I've seen this, I've done this, just let me get back to where I was.
Just let me skip this so I can go back to where I was. But it's like, especially like, oh, I fought 3 bosses in that time.
Right.
Nope, I'm putting that controller down, and that's probably it for a little while.
And I feel like we're especially spoiled, too, because we live in the day of quick resume and that kind of thing, where it's like, oh, you don't even have to go through the loading screen, it just puts you back immediately where you were.
Oh, yeah, imagine the people who played
Final
Fantasy
all of a sudden it's
1.
like, oh, crap, I gotta go through the loading screen. Okay, when was the last time it saved? I don't save games anymore. Like when was the last time you sat here and
All
you
the
were like,
time.
I'm going to manually save?
Constantly.
Oh my gosh, I trust the autosave.
Nope.
And then that's the problem. Is autosave fucks me.
I grew up with a father who had a saying called save well, save often. If you see a save point, save. It doesn't matter if you've already used it. It didn't matter if you're running back through that area. Use the save point. Because the first time you lose some of your progress in that game is probably the time you set it down.
Yeah, I've never learned. I
grew up with a dad who was really big into like the Nintendo. I remember we had the full thing. We had the full like joystick freaking arcade setup playing Ninja Turtles. And like my dad was a fan of like Final Fantasy 1, but the original Final Fantasy 1. You didn't save. You had to play it through in one shot. And that was the OG. Like, can you imagine a JRPG nowadays? You only get one shot. You die. You have to start all over again. It's like those Elden Ring challenge runners. Like, there was recently a guy who completed the God Run, where he completed all of FromSoft games without even getting hit. How?
That's insane, dude. That's just too much.
And it's like, you see this guy break down in tears when he finally succeeds, and I'm like, how are you just breaking down in tears? How are you not mentally just falling apart?
This guy needs therapy at this
Yes, absolutely. Because you know what? I don't care how good you are at fighting them.
The Godfrey and always being scared of getting hit. That's enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sitting there and walking up to normal battles, like, okay, I'm not going to get... No, I got hit. Imagine starting because it's not just one game you have to start over.
Right.
It's all of them. Like, the only benefit they have is the fact that they don't have to play them in order. They can pick how they play them. So they can pick out the easier ones to run through first. Like, Elden Ring's one of the much easier ones. Like, then you want to go play Sekiro. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Sekiro is like the hardest FromSoft game, and you want to do the whole thing without getting hit?
Yeah, that seems insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, mad respect for the guys who can actually do that. But I could never. I can't even begin to attempt one of those. I did a speed run of my New Game Plus. And it took me probably 2 hours. It was intense. I got all the way to Malakath before I had to get help. I got to Malakath and I had to get help because I'm a fucking total strength build, and Malakath is just too fast. Way too fast. I'm not even sure. I don't even think I went and beat Mulaney on that one. It was frustrating. But that speed run alone has killed my want to play the game.
Yeah.
Like, that speed run was so hard that I let my summon buddy take out the Elden Beast.
See, this is where I want to give a special shout out to my Uncle Patrick, who appears in the comments and, always watches my stuff, which I appreciate. But this dude is insane. He not only has beaten Elden Ring multiple times with multiple builds on, like he went through and he perfected it on Xbox, got all the achievements. Then he went through and he perfected it on PC, got all the Steam achievements. Then he went to PS4 and did the same exact thing. He's perfected on everything you can.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like just way too much time in this game.
Yeah, it's bad. So I also did the same thing. When I started Elden Ring, I started it on the Xbox. And because back then I didn't have a PC yet.
Uh-huh.
And then the new generation consoles came out, the Xbox One S or the Xbox One X or whatever it is now. Then the
Series
PS5,
X and Series S.
Those ones, yeah. The ones that are basically a computer anyway. Same with your PS5. It's just a computer. Just get a computer. I will
enjoy
actually,
consoles if you like them.
I will nerf myself there because there's a lot of benefits to individual consoles. Like I got to give a lot of props to PlayStation VR. Like I have recently seen Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Don't know if you've seen the gameplay for that yet.
I don't think I have.
It's amazing. It is freaking incredible.
Wait. Nope. Yes, I have. It's one where you like play as a bounty hunter, right?
It is full VR.
Yep. Okay.
Yes, and it looks amazing. I myself might end up getting it, but my problem is it's a PlayStation exclusive, and I mean I can understand like PlayStation is really wanting play some cards close to their chest.
Yeah,
which is a fine business strategy. It's just
exclusives suck.
Exclusives suck. I'm a huge fan of Horizon Zero Dawn, and Sony, I would really love to play Forbidden West. You don't have to give me your new VR one.
Just let me wait for another 5 years, then they'll put it out.
Just let me play Forbidden West, please. I love it so much. I love it so much. I'm waiting for Aloy to pop back up on Fortnite so I can buy that. And I don't even play Fortnite that much.
All right, so we've discussed, what kind of video games we tend to play very thoroughly, I feel like, at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So now let's sit here and do a little bit of, hey, what other nerdy type things do you enjoy? Obviously, we've made jokes about Star Wars at this point.
Oh, yeah.
I have a bunch of these RPG books sitting here in front of us.
No, Mr. Tabletop.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Tabletop. That sounds very professional.
It actually really does. I like that. I'm going to start calling you Mr. Tabletop.
I feel like I should be wearing like a top hat. Like a really tall top hat though.
Like a Mr. Peanut top hat.
Oh yes.
Oh
there we go.
Gosh,
Give me a little monocle.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be golden.
Oh man. Yeah. So hit me with some of the things that you're kind of into, Kevin. Apart from video games, because obviously we've talked about video games quite a bit.
Extensively.
We're very fond of video games.
Of course. I am also, especially as of the last few months, I am really into just building computers, figuring out what technology we actually have in our world. And as much as I love my little laptop here, it probably will eventually get replaced with a studio PC. But that's just because I plan on building one myself. Building computers, especially nowadays, it's expensive. But there's something so enjoyable about building your own computer system that is just so satisfying. But on top of that, books. I'm a big book guy. Most video games have many accompanying books.
Yes.
And lore is a wonderful thing. If you've ever played the Metro series, Metro 2023 was actually a book before it was a video game. And the books are infinitely better. Mm-hmm. They are so much better. Like the main character of Arthur has so much more depth, so much more personality. He feels so much more loss. And it really brings across the fact that he's just a kid. Mm-hmm. He's just a 19-year-old guy with no experience in the world that he actually lives in.
Yeah, see, that's one of those few ones where I feel like the Witcher book series stands perfectly side by side with the video games, but I feel like it's because they do a phenomenal job of being inspired by, but their own separate thing.
Yes, and that's another thing that even the Metro inevitably did. Metro Exodus was not, as far as I know, part of any of the book series. It was just added on because as far as I knew,
it kind of ended because Metro 2033 and Metro Last Light, the video games, actually just cover the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of it. And it's the story kind of ended there, and then they came out with their own version of Last Light, and then Exodus, which was a wonderful game. I really liked being able to leave the Metro, but it changed the dynamic of the game.
Right.
Like, it changed what it was, and it was fun, but a departure from the books.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were a fan of the books, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But creative liberties in video game studios, which is fine, because you gotta come out with a game, and why not use something that's an established series?
Exactly. It's nice because it takes a lot of the heavy lifting of the world building and that kind of stuff that, has to happen to create these fully fleshed out, lived in feeling worlds.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very easy to create very hollow shells that, encompass things, but they don't really, they're not fleshed out. They don't really have a bunch going on in them, like...
Hollow shell games are a problem, especially hollow shell games that love to tout themselves as top-notch releases. Fallout 76, for instance, was pushed so hard. Don't get me wrong, it's gotten a lot better since its absolutely abysmal release. And I even remember trying to play it, because I feel like that was kind of a misconnection between Bethesda and players. When players like, dude, I want to play Fallout Online. And they're like, okay, here's a full-on online game. And like, I just want to play Fallout 4 with my friend.
Right, exactly.
I just wanted to join a couple of friends in some Fallout 4 or some New Vegas. I didn't want that.
And see, here's the problem, right? Is like, I have tried to pull in 3 or 4 different people to play Fallout 76. And the problem inevitably is they come in, they play for a little bit, and then they sit here and they're like, I am not so much playing this game as I am just constantly having to grind for resources.
Absolutely.
Like, my biggest problem with Fallout 76 was I would sit here and I would do, maybe... I feel like a fourth is generous. For like a fourth of the time I would spend playing, I would do like quests or like stuff that actually like pushed the game forward, and the other 75% of the time I was just trying to get ammo, get skills, get armor,
just trying to survive.
Yeah,
really.
the number of times you sit there and you're like, oh, I need to repair my power armor, and so it's like, oh, that's gonna take me a week of grinding to
because now I gotta go out and get more fusion cores. And again, I know it's gotten better since release, but it's really hard to escape your initial release stigma.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a Battlefield, not Battlefield, a Battlefront. I remember playing the OG Battlefront.
So
OG
good.
Battlefront on what was PS1, PS2? I can't even remember the original console. I think it may have been PS2, but
yeah, that was so good. I think it was PS2. I know I have them for the Xbox.
I remember sitting with my friend Jaren, and we were just sitting there freaking for hours just clashing, and that was so much fun. But there was no paywalls back then.
Yeah.
You just bought a game, There wasn't even really patches. So if it was a broken game on release, it was never going to get better until they released a Game of the Year edition 2 years later.
You want to hear something absolutely heartbreaking? So I own multiple copies of both Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 on, Xbox and PS2. And so my daughter Evie, she is 2 and some change at this point. She really likes to play video games, and like she doesn't necessarily, know what she's doing or that kind of thing. But it's always funny to like throw her into the world. Like, one of my favorite clips is I tried playing Forza Horizons for a little bit, and she would just drive like in a straight line, but it was like
she figured out the gas
her.
button. Hey,
exactly.
That's good for her.
One of my other great ones is I let her play Breath of the Wild a little bit, and she was in the first starting area, and she kept running off the cliff, and so it's fucking hilarious because like I'm sitting here, I'm like showing the screen, I'm recording, go over to her playing, and then you just like hear from off camera just as he falls off and dies.
That's fun. It's so cute though.
But so she's at this great time where she's like able to experience these games experience these games for the first time.
Yeah.
And so I put in Battlefront 2 into my Xbox 360. And it won't fucking start. I'm so hurt, dude. I could not get it to work.
Oh,
I tried
no.
cleaning the disc. Oh my goodness. But, good news is, I don't think that it's the game disc. I think it might be that 360 because I tried putting in any Xbox games and it would just freak out.
What series is it for OG Xbox 360?
Yeah, I don't know.
They had a problem. They had that red ring problem.
Yeah.
Where, like,
Also,
here's
here's the thing.
to last very long.
Is so my dad was a video game collector for a while.
Yeah.
And he eventually dropped out of it for, like he decided he wasn't into video games anymore. And so he gave me a bunch of his stuff. But one of his things that he did was because of him like worrying about the red ring, because it happened to us a couple times. So I have, I think, 3 or 4 Xbox 360s because he just bought backups for in case it ever happened.
Jeez.
And so it's like, I know that this one's having difficulty, so maybe I'll try one of the other ones.
I will say, if you are having troubles with it, there is a quick solution that I remember from back in the day, and just replace your heatsink. It was the heatsinks on them that failed really quickly.
Yeah, and see, what's interesting is it's playing 360 games fine.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird part is when it goes into, it like tries to pull up, because, so 360s, if I remember correctly, they didn't actually play the Xbox games.
No.
They emulated them.
Yes.
And so when it goes to that menu to start to pull up the original like Xbox, startup screen, it freezes.
You see, that would probably definitely, it's probably a bottleneck because of your heatsink.
Right, and so I'm thinking
That would be
maybe try, one of the other Xboxes, but yeah. So
multiplex. I remember that because I remember if you had a 4-segment red ring, you could replace your heatsink with a couple of pennies wrapped in electrical tape, and it worked.
Jesus. Yeah, so some things we're into outside is I like playing video games with my daughter. Kevin likes experimenting and jury rigging his equipment.
Oh,
Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
of course. Oh, you never tried to fix your stuff? It's worse now. It's worse now, especially because I know I've learned a lot about technology and electricity, so I know much more about what I'm doing now. And I will still sit here and defend the pennies. I'll defend the pennies because copper is an amazing thermal conductor.
The best or the closest I ever got to something like that was I one time did the hot towel around the Xbox to get it to work one last time because like it kind of like froze and it was like freaking out.
Yeah.
Did the hot towel so that I could get to a spot to save. And then I was like, okay. And then just like swap the hard drive to a different one.
Oh, you see, I missed that. Back in the day, you could just swap hard drives super easy.
Right.
Now they're all external SSDs, but I mean that's fine.
Right.
Like hell, my computer storage is like a 4 terabyte backup SSD on my desk. It's not even in my computer.
Right.
I've been modifying. I bought an OEM pre-build about a year ago. Be careful with OEM pre-builds. You never know when you're gonna end up getting. I ended up going with an iBuyPower from, surprisingly enough, Walmart. They prioritize the important things. Ish. Motherboard, amazing. CPU, decent. CPU cooler, decent. Graphics card, non-existent. They threw in, the only thing that it came with was actually the small NVIDIA 1030 is what it came with. That's all it came with in a high-powered gaming computer. This will not run anything past Battlefront. I mean, I'm sure it could, but it's not something I mess with too much. So I immediately swapped out. So, I mean, my computer probably came out to a total of, I don't know, $1,000 because I had to pay about $300 for a graphics card.
Right.
But that graphics card, mind you, did come with the Callisto protocol. See, I'm saying it right. And the Dead Island 2 remake, or official release, I should say. Because I always felt like there was a Dead Island 2. But it was Dead Island Riptide.
Yes.
That was Dead Island 2. So I do believe it actually comes out at some point this month. If I'm correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it comes out at some. I know
Let us
because
see.
I went in and checked AMD, the AMD rewards, because I was like, oh, can I download that yet? Because it puts it directly into my Steam list. I was like, oh, can I download that yet? Because I also know for a fact that Kerbal Space Program 2 comes out this month.
I saw that and I was like, Kevin's going to be hyped.
I am excited. I will say, if anybody is into orbital mechanics, rockets, rocket science, even if it's not, like, you got children that like rockets in space, I actually just had a coworker of mine buy Kerbal for her children because I was talking about it. And I was like, yeah, you can cheat, but unfortunately to cheat, you actually have to, do rocket science. If you want to cheat, you have to do the math.
Mm-hmm.
And I cheated a space station into orbit. And it took me 3 days. It took me 3 days and a huge chunk of a notebook just to get the final numbers. I had freaking books of the math. I was pulling formulas off the internet to figure out exactly where I needed to put this thing in orbit in order for it to not crash back into Earth.
So it's April 21st.
Oh, really? All right. That'll be a nice birthday present for me.
When's your birthday?
The 15th of April.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, tax day. Pay your taxes.
Yes, do your taxes. Get that tax return.
Gosh, first I had to pay taxes. First time I ever had to pay taxes. What happens when you work too much overtime? Also, the first year I've ever had to pay property taxes.
Oh yeah, I've never had to do that one before.
I do own this house, so technically I need to pay property taxes. It's like I don't own the property the house is on, but I own the house, which is property.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a whole complicated thing. Learn how to do your taxes. School system, teach children how to do their taxes.
All right. So, Kevin, we're talking about stuff that we enjoy. I don't enjoy taxes.
I also do not enjoy taxes.
But
This one got on a tangent.
Something I do know that you enjoy is Star Wars. Something that we surprisingly haven't mentioned with the fact that we're talking about things that we like outside of video games.
Oh yes, and considering the Star Wars is, my whole thing, I love Star Wars so much. I grew up on it. I remember my uncle showing me Star Wars when I was 5. Sat me down and watched the original trilogy. It's been such a huge part of my life. I actually can't see it because my chair is covering it, but back here I actually own the original box set VHS of the original trilogy. No muck-ups, no George Lucas retouch-ups or anything like that. It's the original series on VHS. It looks terrible. I do own a VHS only for this mass collection of movies behind us.
So, a little background. Me and Kevin used to work together at a place, and Star Wars is such a big part of his personality that when Kevin was having bad days, or like I could tell he was just off or that kind of thing, I would talk to him about Star Wars because I knew that it would like pull him out of his funk because like his passion for Star Wars would like build him up, and like my God, the energy this man gets once he starts to talk about Star Wars.
Oh God, I've actually been kind of avoiding it simply because it's I can go on rants about certain aspects of Star Wars. It's like, for instance, if you think Anakin Skywalker's story is the saddest story in Star Wars, you never paid attention to Star Wars. Hands down, the saddest story in Star Wars is General Grievous. There's something just so sad about somebody fighting for a noble cause and it being twisted for somebody else's gain. And it's so sad. If you think that was General Grievous during the Clone Wars, you're wrong. It was a manipulated, twisted version of the amazing person he used to be. And it's such a great story. I do suggest going out and looking up the comic book series for that arc. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's amazing. Like once you know what Dooku and Sidious did to him, took everything, and all he wanted from the very beginning was for his people to not be slaves. That was it. He had a lot of the same motivations as Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't want to be a slave. He didn't want to be told what he had to be against the grand drop of the world around him,
You know what's funny is I had a part of that comic book run, but I don't think I ever ended up reading it. And so it was one of those that the reason I had part of it is, so do you remember back in the day? So one of the things that I really enjoy outside of video games, that's the topic we're in, just in case you forgot.
That is the topic we're on, just in case I went a little too sidetracky there.
So I used to get the like Star Wars action figures, and they would come with like, it's like, oh, here's this action figure, and then it would come with like an issue of a comic that character was in.
Yeah,
do you remember that?
I do.
Oh my gosh, dude, that was amazing. And I had the General Grievous pre-cyborg action figure.
Yes.
Like in his wraps and everything. And I had the comic, and what's weird is I still have most of the comics from that. Don't know where that one is.
That one was phenomenal. If that is the one I am thinking of, it does go into the full backstory of General Grievous and what he was before he was General Grievous. And I wish I could remember his name, but it's Star Wars, so
right.
Some names get complicated in the grand scheme of the galaxy. But the stories are beautiful. When you look at the underlying, like the Clone Wars, when you look at everything Sidious did in the Clone Wars, can you honestly sit here and tell me he did something bad?
Yes.
I guess with the deaths of the people during the war, maybe. But they were going to die anyway. The deaths were inevitable. There was nothing you can do to change that. So, I mean, you can sit there and say, oh, well, he started a war and controlled it from both sides. Yeah, but then that was better than the total xenophobic exsanguination of the Outer Rim planets. What do you think the CIS was? It was people fed up with the Republic. That war was brewing. Mm-hmm. There was Sidious just pushed it a little bit in the form of Dooku. That was it.
You know, I think that a lot of the argument for like him not doing, or like it was justified or that kind of thing, kind of falls out as soon as they changed what happens after the original trilogy. And as soon as they took all the as soon as they turned it into extended universe stuff, they kind of ruined a lot of that argument. I feel like.
Yeah, of course they did. Because
because bad guys have to be bad. We can't have colors or shades to our bad guys.
Actually, I kind of disagree there. I feel like the EU is the one that filled out the gray areas where George Lucas was like bad, good, red, blue, or red, green, or whatever. But then, tell me why it's the opposite in everything else. Tell me why the Sith use red lightsabers and the Jedi use blue and green, and yet when it comes to the flip side, the Republic ships use red lasers. The CIS use blue and green. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not a subtle nod to the total situation. I don't know what is.
Right.
It's a beautiful nod. Using color and food and things like that to set scenes. It's like if you ever watch an old noir movie, and I think it even still holds true for a lot of new movies. I think it was a Coppola thing, but if you see oranges in a scene, somebody's gonna die. It's just a weird trope. If you see somebody eating an apple, it's because it's supposed to punctuate them being a bad person. Like CinemaSins. Shout out to the love CinemaSins. And here, eat this apple. It'll make you look like more of an asshole. Mm-hmm. And that's literally the point. That is why he troped it, because that's just what they do.
Right.
And it's just like that. Just small subtle things like the laser beam colors. Kind of nod to who they are. Like, right. Yes, the Empire blew up Alderaan, but the Rebels blew up 2 Death Stars.
Yeah.
Who was on those Death Stars? You think it was soldier? No. In our modern world, for every 1 combat soldier, there are 3 support soldiers. So for every stormtrooper you saw on the Death Star, there were 3 support people at minimum.
Because like you're sitting there, you got to think, not only do they have like, the soldiers, but you got the mechanics who are repairing it. You have like all of these different. It's like one of my favorite ones is there's so it's for the sequel trilogy. But they have Adam Driver go undercover as like it's like undercover bosses. Yeah. And he's pretending to be like a janitorial staff. I remember. And just the idea of like a sitcom about the janitorial staff on like these like ships or that kind of thing is fucking hilarious.
Oh yeah. There was actually on a weird note, there was another comic book series, and I'm gonna have to look it up and find out what it was. but it was actually an entire side series that somebody made to prove that nobody had an effect on anything in the original trilogy. Not a single person. You think Luke saved everyone? You're actually wrong. You think he blew up the first Death Star? Surprisingly wrong. There's an entire comic book series. Mind you, it's not canon. Of course it wouldn't be canon. Disney owns this now, but... And I believe this still came out when Lucas held everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it was 2 idiots. It was 2 stormtroopers that blew up the Death Star by accident. They managed to get out, and they ended up joining the Alliance, or the Republic, the New Republic, or the Rebels, or whatever. And they ended up just bungling their way through everything. Like, they ended up actually helping the Ewoks in some way or another, but it was just turned out these 2 bumbling morons were walking their way through the original trilogy and actually set a bunch of these things into motion. And it was just so great. Because, I mean, when you look at the normal people in Star Wars, I love them. I love it when we go normal people in Star Wars. When you sit down at a cantina and you hear the people talking, oh, what do you think of the Empire? What? Oh, I don't care. What's the difference? When they're living on some small backwater planet, what's the difference? And then the stories that they give for those people are they're so wonderful. Like, there's an entire comic book series on what happens to Jar Jar, or an episode that what happened to Jar Jar after the rise of the Empire. He didn't die. No, they just sent him home.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, honestly, if we leave him here, he'll probably do more damage than if we send him back home.
No, yeah, if we leave him
he might
here,
cause the Gungans to go extinct if we send him back home.
If we leave him in the Senate, he's going to give somebody else that emergency power, like he'd mistakenly did in the first place.
Oh, Jar Jar.
Oh, Jar Jar. One of Star Wars' biggest mistakes. Oh, I love the Gungans, though. I'm not going to sit here and say I love Jar Jar, but I do like the Gungans as a species.
And, like, their technology is just so cool looking.
Oh, yeah,
like,
the entire underwater city.
There was something, like, between that and, like, there was something about, like, as a kid, I wanted one of those, like, electric balls that they had. Like, like, I don't even want it, like, to, like, throw it at anything. I just want to, like, sit it back here.
Yeah, I just want to
look at it.
It looked like one of those old, like, electrical balls that you could, like, lead the leads to with your fingers. But, like, it was made of, like plasma or something. Oh, those were so cool.
That's so good.
I really had a thing for their leader. I can't remember his name. Boss something.
Boss Nass, right?
Oh, yeah, Boss Nass, yeah. He was so goofy, even when he was trying to be serious. Maybe we shall be friends with the Naboo. I loved that. It was like, it was such a serious moment, but he was still allowed to be funny.
Right.
They allowed, even the serious Gungans were funny. It's just like the droids. I love Star Wars droids, especially the B-1 battle droids, the standard droids that somehow. So there's a trope there's a thing in Star Wars where they you have to wipe your droid's memory every so many years, or else they start to develop personality quirks.
Right.
That's what made R2 and C-3PO who they were. They never wiped their memory. There's a whole episode of the Clone Wars,
right,
where the Separatists got their hands on R2, and Anakin freaks out about it because he never wiped him. Never wiped his memory because he liked who he was as a personality. And so as the Clone Wars dragged on, a lot of these B-1 battle droids were repurposed from battle to battle and battalion to battalion, and they weren't wiped. So a lot of them ended up developing these small personality quirks that you see throughout the Clone Wars, where like 2 Jedi corner 1 B-1 battle droid, and he stops and he goes, "Oh, hi." I just said something ridiculous before getting killed, like something that was uniquely that battle droid. But that's the other part of Star Wars, where they love to try and get you to feel something for droids, and then immediately try to watch one get curb stomped to freaking negate that feeling that they just tried to give you for droids. Droids aren't things. Droids aren't emotional. They're not living beings. But then they treat R2 like it's their best friend. Like it's not just a rolling, whistling garbage can.
So Kevin, we've discussed Star Wars now.
Gosh.
We're both big fans of Star Wars. I let Kevin talk about Star Wars, though, because he is far more knowledgeable and that kind of thing. I I enjoy lightsaber go burr.
Lightsaber. I would love one of those like NeoPixel lightsabers. Eventually, I'm gonna get a couple of them and we can hang them up on the background. That'll be awesome. I love NeoPixel lightsabers. Probably ruin all of my lighting, but hey, it's fine. I'll accept it. I'll take it. I'll work with it.
Right, we'll adjust from there.
Yes.
But so big things for us. We like Star Wars. We like movies.
Video games, sci-fi, fantasy, history.
Comic books, we see here. I don't know if I don't hop into manga really just because,
I've read
manga can get expensive.
I got about a year or two ago, I got really into an active manga called Solo Leveling.
It's anime now, isn't it?
If it is, I am right now the happiest I've ever been because I loved that manga.
I think it's coming out. I don't know if it's out yet.
It is really good. If you ever get the chance, go ahead and go. I think they sell them on Amazon. They are kind of expensive for each copy, but it follows a character by the name of Jin Woo as his world gets turned into a video game, quite literally.
That was I bought for my brother. It looks like March 2023.
Oh, a very exciting, more exciting thing is 2023 is going to be a wonderful year for nerds.
So it sounds like, I'm guessing it's going to be part of the summer anime slate then?
That's like
or are we technically in the winter anime slate now? I can't remember. But
we're coming in on spring. We're still in winter.
Okay. So it'll be part of the spring anime season then, I'm guessing?
Yes, most definitely. Very exciting. That'll definitely be one I watch.
Yeah, that was one of the my younger brother's super into anime, super into manga. One of the ones I got him is because I know that he's super into it, and so I got him one of the big super it looks like straight up like a Bible and it's the first issue of Berserk.
Oh Lord!
And it's or not first issue, but the first collection. And it's the super hardcover, leather bound.
It's legit. It's like a legit manuscript.
Yeah,
I remember I read Berserk for the first time in high school. Shame on you, high school, for leaving that in your library.
No way, they did not.
They did. They had half of the Berserk series in our library, and I was like, whoa! They had a whole manga section. I started reading one called Corpse Delivery Service there as well. That one was another. That was like a Bleach style anime long before Bleach came out, but it was really good.
So now that we're already kind of talking about anime, so let's do what kind of anime do you like, Kevin? Tell me some of your favorites that you've enjoyed.
Yeah, it's all about the good story. Action and everything is one thing, but once you've established a good story, for instance, I'm going to throw out the first 2 seasons of Bleach.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite animes. But I can't stress only the first 2 seasons before it kind of ran away bloatware style. Because it was such a solid thing. One guy is different. He doesn't really know why he's different, but he's different. Somebody comes in to affirm and give purpose to that difference. And then he has to turn around and repay that favor to save this person. That is a good premise in my mind. That was really good, and they set themselves up beautifully for another season that didn't come out for a while. It's the Waco Mundo arc. And during Ichigo's assault of the Soul Society, one of the Soul Reapers disappears without anybody noticing. His name is Aizen. And he slips off to Waco Mundo and basically creates his own army. And that was beautiful. That was a beautiful way to set that up. But they needed 16 seasons of filler in between it. That's an exaggeration, of course, but there was so much that I just couldn't. Well, once Ichigo was no longer special, you ruined the basic premise of your own story.
Mm-hmm.
Once all of his friends became special too, all of his friends became these superheroes. I was like I'm a big fan of My Hero Academia as well.
Love it.
Big My Hero Academia fan. I had friends trying to get me to watch it for years, and I just didn't. I never got around to it. One day I sat down, me and the wife turned it on. I love it. I love that anime. It's great.
Where are you at in it?
I've seen it all.
Okay, perfect.
I've seen all of it. But like the relationship between Deku and All Might, and like the fact that Deku isn't special but is special because of the effort he gives to become special.
Well, and so that was. It's funny because I literally was having this conversation with Laura the other day. But something that so like, not only do I love like My Hero Academia, but I am an insane X-Men fan.
Oh,
And
yes.
one of the things about X-Men is, you have these varieties of mutants, like some people, they have powers. Some people, it's just a mutation, like famously in the movies, you got the kid who's got the blue lizard tongue.
Yes.
It's like, he's never going to do anything with that. That's not, he
It's
can't.
cool, but it's not a
know,
superpower.
He just needs a safe spot, and so that's why he's there. Something that I love about My Hero Academia is there are so many characters that it's like, your power's shit. It's garbage. You're never going to do anything with that power.
Yeah.
But they are determined that they're going to fucking do something with it. Like, two that right off the top of my head, you have, or three really quick off the top of my head, is you have, I can't remember his name, but the Cellophane, I think is his superhero name, where he literally just has the tape that comes out of his elbows. Like, fucking random ass power, and it's like, had he not like honed it so much, like, that would be useless. Like, like just shooting tape out of his elbow. But like, he like sits there and he's like, you know what I can do with this? He's like, I can swing around like fucking Spider-Man. Like, and he can use it to capture people.
Yeah.
But like, it's only like because of his like,
determination to find a useful path. For
there's
it.
like literally that camp that they go to where his like entire thing, like all that he does for that entire camp is he stands at the top of a mountain and just shoots his tape off of the mountain.
Yeah, until it like tires him out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like this is a power that's fucking useless, but he's determined to make it something. You have fucking oh god, no.
What was her name? She can make things float by touching them.
Oh yeah, God, what? Okay, so guys, something that you're going to realize, something my wife hates about me. I'm terrible with names. I am the last person you want to ask about names because, my God, I'm just not good with them. But yeah, no.
But same thing.
Yeah,
it could be
her
useful
same thing.
minimally, but she found many different ways to make it.
You know what's funny
more
is
useful.
I said, the number. I didn't even think of her. She wasn't one of the ones I even thought of.
Really?
I'm thinking of like grape juice. Like, why do I know their superhero names?
Oh,
but I
when
don't
he
know their
has the
actual
little
names?
grape
just
things that he throws off. at
fucking
people?
useless superpower. But he like sits there and it's like it's useful for capture. He eventually uses it for like climbing around. Like he uses it to like bounce off of. Like
He uses them as projectiles.
yeah, he comes up with these clever ways to use them. Or, like the third and final one is, so like, I got a very special place in my heart. She is, in regards to My Hero Academia, who I'm like, oh yeah, she's waifu. Jiro. I absolutely love Jiro. And her thing is my wife hates her because she's got the weird earlobes because of the earphone jacks.
Oh yeah.
But her power is like, it's like, I can listen really fucking good. And then she gets equipment later that she can like just launch her heartbeat.
Yeah.
And it's like,
she can do sonic
bro.
attacks with it.
Yeah, it's
She's
like-
got mounted speakers. And
Yeah.
Rip things
and it's
apart.
just
Yeah,
like,
crazy.
we sit here and it's like, that's something that I absolutely have to give My Hero Academia because it's, you take these people who it's like, your power is shit. It's garbage. And that's something that I really appreciate is it's like, everybody has powers, but it's like, how useful is your power?
Exactly.
But
What
it's
do
like,
you
does it
do with
really
that
matter
power?
how useful my power is? Or does it matter
Of
that
how
I'm-
determined I am to make it
like,
useful.
yeah, just how creative I am,
Is
like,
it depending on what I can do, or what I can physically do, or what I can mentally do?
Because that's, I think two of my favorite characters in it are, I absolutely love the kid who's joining class 1A or B, or trying to at least, who his power is if somebody will respond to him, he can control them.
Yeah.
It's like, that power is so hard to use. Like,
Oh yeah.
and the creative ways they get around it, of like that vocal modulation machine that he has, and like he's trying to learn to use the capture scarf that Mr. Aizawa has, and like that's another character. It's like cool. His power is he can take away other people's powers. Dude, that's OP. No, it's only so long as he doesn't blink, and then they get it back.
Exactly.
And it's like the stakes they put on people's powers.
Yeah. Because some of them
what
are,
makes it so good.
like All Might. All Might's power can literally kill him.
Yes.
If he does not use it properly, it can and will kill him.
Yep.
It inevitably is going to kill him regardless. Because he was never designed to hold the power that he does have.
Mm-hmm.
It was never natural, so it had to be given.
Right.
And I mean, that's why Deku ended up getting so messed up. He punches one thing, shatters his whole freaking arm.
Yeah, no.
Another one that I love for that
huge My Hero Academia fan, but yeah.
Attack on Titan.
Yes.
I love Attack on Titan. There's a video game for Attack on Titan. It's Attack on Titan 2. Hard suggest. You get to play through the entire anime. And yes, you get to swing around like Spider-Man and cut things up. And it's freaking great. But that anime, I loved a lot. The reason I love that anime, 2 words. Character development is bloody everything in any story you're trying to tell. Because no matter how your character starts off, they can't stay that way. It's never possible to stay that way. And so when it came to Eren, the main character, he starts out as this wholly idealistic kid.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish this. I'm going to stop this from happening anymore. I'm going to stop all these people from dying constantly for no reason. And that was his motivation. And as you sit there and you see him try, especially after the loss of his mother, when he has to watch all that happen, and you really understand his motivation for wanting to wipe out the Titans. And how it goes from that idealistic young kid, who is obviously the good guy of the story too. Is he? Is he the good guy of the story?
Yeah. See. Okay. So
motivations change.
I'll throw this out here really fast. I've watched the first season of Attack on Titan. I watched like a couple episodes of the second season. It got really weird all of a sudden out of left field. I didn't finish the second season. I never came back for any more of it, even though my younger brother, who, you know, I talk about being super into anime and manga, he has told me it gets really fucking good. And I know that it does, but I still just, I'm like, I gotta get through that second season. And it was so weird.
I guess to put it in a way that's not too spoilery, it changes.
Yeah, no, that's, I have seen clips of it, like, literally looks like Titan military operations.
The game changes.
Yeah.
Yes. It goes from idealistic kids trying to save the world to jaded adults trying to end it. And it's just insanity. And that game that show does not pull punches. Oh, you really liked that character? Well, guess what? Now they're dead. Oh, you really liked how that character reacted with everybody else? Well, no, guess what? You don't even see it anymore because I just put a bullet in their head.
That was so, you know, big thing in anime is you have characters who have plot armor. And, you know, for those of you who aren't super big into anime, because, you know, this section is to kind of convince more people to try out anime if you like nerdy stuff. So plot armor is basically you have a character who he is integral to the plot, and so therefore he cannot die or that kind of thing. He can get hurt, he can be beaten, but you will never lose this character.
Yeah, and it always kind of leads to that obviousness that they're not going to die. You know,
yeah.
You've been following one character that's been in the center of the camera for half the show so far, obviously.
And so one of my favorite shows, and I'd be curious to see, but so my little brother went through for a while, and like I say little brother, I do that literally just because he is younger than me, but you know he's 18 at this point. He's turning 19, you know, very, very soon. And so it's funny to call him my little brother, but he at one point, because like super into anime, and so he literally had watched like, I would say the list was like at like 75 or like 100.
That's
and
a lot.
he would rank them.
Dang.
And so for a while, he one of his favorites, I'm not sure if it still is up there, was an anime called Akame ga Kill. And it basically takes the idea of plot armor and it throws it out the window. You have this group of people who it's like, oh, we're going to get super attached to them. They're this like rebel organization that's like fighting against the, you know, the kingdom or the empire. I can't remember which they call it. And the whole thing is there are these like they're these special devices that were made that they take different forms, and not everybody can use them. So there's this whole like military thing where they'll sit here and they like will train people, and then they'll like rapid like push them through and be like, okay, can you basically sync up to this? Nope. Okay, next person. Can you sync up to this? And so you have basically these like people with like different superpowers almost because of these devices that they have.
Yeah.
And then you have this rebel organization that's fighting against this empire, you know, who is like real bad. And just as the story progresses, you lose so many characters. And it, because like it starts off as it's like, oh man, this is going to be a dark anime.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, immediately the main guy, it's like, it starts off like typical like shonen anime. It's like, oh, you know, main guy leaving his home village to like, you know, set off into the world and help and get money to like send back. And he leaves with 2 of his childhood friends and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
End of the first episode, you find them emaciated and tortured because this like rich noble has been doing experiments on them for her own fun.
Dang.
And it is so graphic, and it's just like, oh, that's the kind of anime this is going to be. And you just, everybody fucking dies. Just like through the, it like starts off with like, I want to say like 6 or 8 main characters. And just as it goes, it's like, my God, this group is getting small.
There's a an anime that came out pretty recently. I heard they're actually going to release it as a video game coming up probably either this year or next year. It's called Goblin Slayer. Don't watch Goblin Slayer. Sorry, people who made Goblin Slayer. Don't watch Goblin Slayer. It is violent. It is graphic. It is triggering in many ways. If you you don't want to see somebody getting essayed by a goblin, don't watch that anime. That one got me pretty bad. That was another one of those. There's no, well, there is plot armor because there's this one OP dude that's like your 3rd new game plus of Elden Ring. When you're just super OP.
Yeah.
You're level 8 or 713 and nothing can stop you anymore.
Yeah.
But it's not a very good one. But it was just they're so not afraid to tear apart all the rest of their characters just to make a point that it's.
Yeah, see that's and see one of the things I like, so one of the genres that does plot armor a lot is isekai animes. You know, that classic, oh, dude from our world gets transported into fantasy world or whatever.
Gosh. It's some Sword Art Online.
Sword Art Online.
Yeah.
You have just honestly there are so many.
Overlord.
Konosuba, Overlord.
Big fan of Overlord though. Really loved that show.
Yeah, Overlord was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I completely forgot about Overlord just until you started talking about that kind of anime. And I'm like, oh yeah, Overlord, that one was phenomenal.
And you know, it's always one of those ones where it's like the character doesn't, you know, explicitly have plot armor, but they are just like so OP because of like experience that they take from the real world.
Yeah, and the fact that like for instance in Overlord, he started out OP. He started out OP because he was an old school player of this fucking game.
Yeah. One that like it was a really weird isekai that I'd never like kind of experienced this type before. In classic anime fashion has an insanely long title, which I believe is the world's finest assassin gets transported into another world and becomes an aristocrat.
That's a title.
I think that is the title. It's something along those lines. It's pretty damn close.
Title, my dude.
But the whole idea is this assassin from our world gets killed, like as he's like, oh, one last mission, you know, it's time to retire. Gets fucking killed and gets reborn in this other world. And there's this like all-powerful god or whatever who's like, you know, transporting people. And she gets people from a bunch of different backgrounds. And she's like, hey, there's this hero who he's going to, you know, save the world, but then he's going to go overboard with his power and basically ruin the world and cause things to actually be worse than when he saved it in the first place. I'm going to send you in there into this other world. As a kid, your mission is to kill him. And so it's like you have, you know, you can grow up and that kind of thing, and you got to get skills to basically kill him. And it's really interesting because they start you off with like, you know, this like all-powerful person is like, oh, you know, I'm gonna help you out, you know, like try and kill them. So basically you get to pick, I can't remember what the breakdown is, but it's like there's like you get one S tier skill and then like it like drops down, And so, like, you know, you get to, like, take different skills, and he, like, has all his knowledge from being an assassin in the other world. And so he, like, invents guns in this, like, magic fantasy world. And, like, it's crazy. He, like, eventually makes, like, straight up, like, an artillery system and, like, just shells the, like, main dude that he thinks is the, like, main bad guy that he's supposed to be killing. And, like, that's eventually how he beats him, is he just, like, he shells him from
artillery?
orbit. Yeah, he makes a railgun and, like, launches something from space and, like, nails this dude. That's, like, how he defeats the guy that he thought was the main dude. And it's like, oh no, that was just, like, a buddy of the main dude.
Could you imagine if that's how assassinations worked in real life? Okay, I need you to take out this high value target, but you can't use a gun or a knife or poison. You have to use a tungsten rod in orbit and take out half the city the guy's in with him.
Yeah, and it's just one of those where it's like main guy super OP, that kind of thing.
Oh gosh,
and it's like so funny and like interesting because of the fact that it's like I have never seen this angle before. And what also is super funny is they like will occasionally cut to he's not the only person that she is sending after this target. And so she's like getting a bunch of people from a bunch of different like lifestyles. Like there's one point where she's like, hey, you know, you were a chef in real life who was really good.
Poison this guy.
Yeah, poison him. You know, basically like find a way to kill him. There's she gets like a professional boxer, like a general of an army, you know, like just a bunch of different like walks of life. And so then she'll like check in on them to see how they're doing. Like, oh, how have they progressed? I haven't checked in on this person in a while. And like they just like will completely have like abandoned their mission and that kind of stuff. They're just like living fat and happy.
I was like, oh, the chef is rich because he invented a way of cooking. Oh, that guy made guns. That may have been a mistake.
So the main guy who invents guns. So his whole thing is they put him into this like family who it's like, oh, their family, they are doctors and assassins. And so in order
I'm pretty sure that's against the Hippocratic Oath.
In order to like, you know, have like a disguise, he like creates like another identity and they like send him off to like be this like merchant's son. And how he makes a fortune and becomes super like popular, like able to get into all of these like high socialite houses is he invents in this world cosmetics. He creates lotion. He invents the idea of lotion to like help like all the aristocrat like older women like, oh, skincare, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh geez.
Yeah, so it's like super weird and like different than like your typical like just overpowered. But another one that so this one is really interesting because a lot of people will argue that it is the first isekai ever, manga-wise, but it only became an anime like a year or two ago.
Really?
And so what's insane about that is because of that, like, the manga's done. And so they have, like, this crazy, like, in-depth world of, like, hundreds of, you know, these books. And so it, like, watching the anime, it's like everything is so like thought out and that kind of thing because they already know the world. They know how everything's built. The like politics in it are like super smart and that kind of thing. And it's called Mushoku Tensei. And it's really interesting because it does something that I would say most isekai just completely ignore about the fact. And so a very common thing with isekai anime is it's like, oh, you know, this person lived like a shitty life in the real world. They were like a shut-in or that kind of thing.
A bad person that's now being punished for one reason or another.
Or like, you know, they were just a loser who like now comes here and gets to get all the girls or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But what's really interesting is so they never experience any of the negatives about that. They just get all the positives from this. And so what's something super interesting that they deal with in Mushoku Tensei is his character was a shut-in because he was like super bullied because he was like overweight and this and that. And so he at one point they were like having him like leave his like family house to go like, you know, train in the wider world. And he like has like a mental breakdown because he's like just scared to leave his like family's like ranch and that kind of stuff. And so it's really interesting because it's like, oh yeah, this is a new life, but you have your old traumas from your other life. And so he has to like overcome it. And so it's like, man, that's it's interesting that as this trope has evolved, it's left some stuff behind, you know, just like it's just become like, oh, loser wants to be cool, overpowered
so loser
dude,
becomes
and
cool and overpowered.
and get the girls.
That actually reminds me of another one that I used to love growing up. It's called Gurren Lagann, and so it was sneaky. It was kind of person gets transported to a new world, but it was also kind of that thinly veiled plot armor. But it's thin. So humanity in this world has been driven underground. They're living underneath under the ground because there are creatures that live on the surface that are giant mechs, giant machines, and they'll kill you if you go up there. So you start off with this kid. Apologies, I can't remember the characters' names. It's been a long time since I've seen this anime. And they had to tunnel through the earth to create new living areas. And so that's what they would do. They would spend all day tunneling through these tunnels. And it followed a younger kid and an older kid who would take care of each other. One of them was the older guy was the cool fucking greaser kid in their fucking village or whatever. And one day while they were digging around, they got into a little skirmish with each other. They fell down a hole. They found a mech suit at the bottom of that hole. And they decided in that moment that they're going to take that mech suit and use it. Because it's a 2-person mech suit. And so they get into it. It's a larger one and then a smaller control one in the chest. So the little kid sits in the smaller control one. The older guy sits in the head of the larger mech. And they decided that, you know what? Screw this. I want to know what's up there. Kid is hesitant. He doesn't really want to leave what he knows.
Yeah.
But the older guy's like, no, we have to do this. We have this power now. We need to get people up there again because this is hell. And so they do it. They go for it. And then it turns out when they get up there that, yes, mechs are fucking everywhere, but they are controlled by people. They are controlled by warlords that are on the surface. And so once they get up there, the warlord of that area notices that these people are now here. He now knows where they are. And they have to defend themselves from this warlord. And at the end of the first season, the older kid straight dies. They straight murder him.
Well, damn.
Yeah, right in front of the younger kid. And the whole freaking first season shows the older kid being the strong leader. The one that's going to come in and save everyone.
Right.
And they pull all the tropes toward him. He's dodging death left and right. He's suave. He's cool. He's agreeable. And he gets cut in half. Goodness. And then you're left with the kid, who is the opposite of everything he was. And this kid now needs to take up the mantle of his dead friend. And survive and create the world into something that people can live in again. And it's such a good show because, again, character development's important. And when you have characters that stagnate in one area, this is the problem with those long drawn out animes like Bleach. You don't have a lot of development because most of it's filler.
Right, or you end up having the problem where it's like, I know, not Bleach, but Fairy Tail, it would have this whole thing where it's like, okay, you know, we're going to dive super deep into one character's like backstory, and so you'd have like arcs for a character.
Yeah.
But then like once you were through their arc, it's like there's no character development for the character anymore.
It's not like the other people treated them any differently.
Right.
It's not like they acted any differently, and that's the problem. Those flashbacks, they're meant to show you why a character is the way they are. But if they don't show development through the flashback, it's pointless.
Right.
If they're the same person before and after, they haven't developed. And I know it's got to be freaking difficult to write that shit.
Right.
Because, like, developing a character from one point to the next is, like, I recently saw a thing that was laying out the life of a guy named Kuja from Final Fantasy VI. He was the bad guy. And as a matter of fact, he is the bad guy of all bad guys for Final Fantasies. Because he's the only one that won. Kuja took over the whole world. He won. He destroyed the whole world. At the end of Final Fantasy VI, it is just your group who's now killed this guy, and you have to put it all back together.
Uh-huh.
There's no magic fix. The world's fucked.
Yeah.
And the character development of Kuja is beautiful through the game because he starts out as a whipping boy, as somebody who was just experimented on. He was a lab rat, and then he became the freaking emperor's favorite clown, and he ended up getting a military assignment because of it. And he slowly built his way up to overthrowing the emperor, and destroying the entire. He tears the entire planet in half, and like at the end of it. Your main characters are sitting there, bloodied, bruised, half dead. And what did it matter? Everything's still dead. Everything is still destroyed. There's no magic undo button for it. They just have to live in that filth now. And I love that.
Right. I think that's an interesting one. I can't think of like names off the top of my head or that kind of stuff, but I really enjoy... I've seen it for like a couple different like anime or like books or video games, that kind of thing, where like the entirety of it takes place like after the hero saved the world, because it's like, okay, but they wiped out all these power structures, and so now you got power vacuums of people trying to take up these positions of power, and it just ends up being worse because now all of a sudden, you know, it's like, oh, we had this one group who controlled this area, but now there's like 6 groups fighting over control of this area all of a sudden.
Right, yeah, and it's funny, I love things like that because they just point out like real world scenarios. Like if an empire collapsed back in the ancient world, like power vacuums happened, a bunch of other smaller states would rise up and start killing each other to take over. Anime, it can be written very well, but it also can be written very poorly. And I feel like it's to segue backwards a little bit here, it's the same way with video games. If you don't have a video game that's written well, you have a waste of data space.
Right.
Yeah, and that sucks. Like I've ranted about this time and time again, and it was the Jedi Fallen Order. The characters are so flat, and there's not a lot of character development. It's beautiful. The gameplay's amazing. I very much look forward to Jedi Survivor. But please add some personality to your characters. If I get Weepy Cal Kestis again, I'm not going to be happy.
Right. I'm hoping that because they're getting more, that the character development will be through the games rather than...
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that Cal Kestis will take away from the events of the first game to become a better person or Jedi or whatever you want him to be. Like, it's like Battlefront 2. Battlefront 2 has the newer Battlefront 2 has one of the best campaign storylines ever. And I don't know if you've played it, but...
You've told me to play it so many times, and I still haven't.
It accompanies a book, which is one of those things that's kind of a hit and miss. Like, for instance, the newer Halo Infinite, took place after the Halo Wars. So if you didn't play Halo Wars, you were really lost going into Infinite, you know? And I did not play Halo Wars, so going into Infinite, it made me upset. It was jarring. I didn't know who anybody was. Like... I expected this to take over from, 4, where they left off.
Yeah, because he's not in 5 at all, right?
Who?
Master Chief?
No, he's the main character. Oh, no, in 5?
Yeah. Because in 5, it's the group that's trying to find him, right?
No, you plays both. You plays Blue Squad and freaking, crap, I forgot his name.
Master Chief?
No, Locke.
Oh.
You play as Master Chief, that's Blue Squadron. They've always been Blue Squadron since they were freaking initiates. If you ever watched the Fall of Reach movie or the Fall of Reach book, they do a deep dive into who everybody who's with Chief is. So they expect you to know that, which is interesting. Mind you, they're gone in the Infinite, which again, it makes sense if you paid attention to everything else. But that's it. It's only if you paid attention to absolutely everything.
Right, I think that's one of the biggest, most difficult things is just, it can be really cool to get this information like outside of the game or that kind of stuff, but as soon as you make it to where you need that information, you're just making it less accessible to everybody. You're
just absolutely lost. And Halo, really, it got me. I was talking about another game just before that. What was it?
It was Battlefront 2, but I will save that rant for
next time.
That can feel like a solid maybe topic for the middle next time. But so we've talked about a lot of anime that we like, some weird, some not. Do you have any weird anime that you really appreciate that you haven't mentioned yet?
Really good anime, a weird anime. You
Yes,
know
weird.
what? I can't say that I do. There are a few one-offs that I've seen that I absolutely love that apparently nobody else did. There was a series on Toonami for a while called Dead Man Wonderland. I loved the premise. It was weird kids that could control their blood,
Mm-hmm.
and they fought in weird ways with their blood. And like, if you lost, it was just because you ran out of blood.
Right.
It was, and they were like forced to fight in these underground arenas for the state, and it was weird and dystopian, and I weirdly liked it. And they led up into a really good start for a season 2, but they never got it.
Dude, that's one of my biggest gripes about anime is, so if you are just starting off on anime, then prepare yourself for, if there is not another season, there never will be. Just go into it assuming that you're never going to get another season of it.
Absolutely.
Because it is so much easier to just be surprised by another season than it is to expect another season.
Because you're gonna be disappointed when you expect it. Anime is one of those things that it's either such a large majority of the fandom loves it, or such a small majority of the fandom loves it.
Right.
Like, either it's really well known, and because it got spread around by the few diehard fans, that it keeps going. But when there's only like a small handful of the community that's really into that one show, they're not gonna pander to a small group.
Right.
And which is unfortunate because there's so many really good ones.
Well, and I know a lot of people are holding out hope these days because we had one of the weirdest, most rare things happen in anime recently, which is a show called The Devil is a Part-Timer, which is kind of a reverse isekai where like a demon lord from another world gets defeated and banished. And so he gets banished to our world where he then decides that, oh, hey, I'm going to live as a person and I'm going to build this empire by basically he starts off and becomes manager of their equivalent of a McDonald's. And he really likes being the manager of this McDonald's.
That seems like a really good place for for a demon lord to work, you know?
Yeah, and it had one season. There was more content, that kind of thing, through manga that could have been made. And then almost a decade later, they have just now put out the second season.
Wow, that's...
And so it was one of those that it's like, no, everybody's like, it's done. It's never going to get a second season. And then 10 years later, here's a second season. It's just like, dang, man, what other anime could we get a second season to?
That's a bold move waiting that long. It's like an Avatar 2 all over again.
Oh, my goodness.
The rest of us that were like, Avatar 2, I don't remember Avatar 1. What? That was so long ago. Like, you're going to wait 13 years before releasing the next episode of anything, and you're probably going to lose some viewers there.
I think I was literally in middle school when Avatar came out.
Absolutely. Me and my wife were driving to the grocery store the other day. We had to remind each other what the freaking premise of the first one was.
Blue people want to get freaky.
No,
or he wants to get freaky with blue people.
Human turn into blue man. No, paralyzed human turn into blue man because brother died.
Yes.
Because brother died, paralyzed man get leg again. Because he get leg again, he get laid again. When he get laid again, he get real into whatever got him laid to begin with. And he's like, you know what? I
like being blue.
I was never that big that big a human anyway. So you know what? Screw these guys. And then again, let's look at the humans in that. Like, don't you love how like sci-fi loves painting the human race as like the aggressors and the bad guys? Like, we are never the good guys to ourselves. We either make ourselves the good guys and the bad guys, or for some reason we're the dicks. It's like, we're going to go into this native world that aren't very advanced. We can travel through space, though. See that magic tree they're sitting under? And you know what? I love to say that the whole unobtainium thing was stupid and calling it that. But you know what? It's not, because it's the kind of stupid thing humans would really call something.
Yeah, no, that's plausible. That's very plausible.
Are not very clever. They don't tend to come up with things that are super clever. So if something's really hard to get, they'd probably be dumb enough to call it unobtainium.
I fucking forgot they called it unobtainium.
Yeah, they did. And like the argument's always been, well, that's so dumb. Why would they call it that? I'm like, because, well, people aren't very clever.
Right. Like, especially, I imagine it probably has a really cool scientific name, but like the corporate head of whatever company that they are like being funded by is like, oh, it's like super hard to get. It's like unobtainable. Oh, let's call it unobtainium.
That's it. That's it. That's how. And it's funny because that's how shit really works.
Yep.
That's how like the world really works. So just like go through the genus names in the animal kingdom, and they're ridiculous because, or like bacteria, anything small, microscopic especially. Because we found a lot of big things, and then we started looking at small things, and we started running out of clever names for things. So then we started naming things like water bears. I mean, don't get me wrong, tardigrade is a pretty good name for it. But people were like, tardigrade? That's a water bear. That looks nothing like a bear.
Yeah.
What are you going to call it a bear?
I mean, it's definitely a weird choice, but you know what else is weird? Video games can be weird. So, Kevin, our final segment is what we're going to be doing is we're going to be playing or talking about weird video games that we've played. So, we're not going to go too in depth, but I would like you to throw out some of your favorite examples of what you consider to be a weird game.
I'll give 2 examples. One from my much younger days, from my hardcore JRPG days, and one from my more modern, I buy way too many games on Steam days. Believe me, the Steam one will get ya. So, one of my favorite games for my entire family growing up, it was a game called Thousand Arms.
I knew this was the one you're going with.
And it is a JRPG / blacksmithing simulator / dating simulator. And the dating's important to the blacksmithing. Because as you go on dates, you earn the love of these women. Or men. It don't judge. If I remember correctly, you can go out with a couple of guys on that one too. But the better the love for these people, they form these attachments to you. And then you bring them into your blacksmithing studio. And their love helps you forge your weapons. And it's ridiculous. The main character of the game, I don't remember his name. It is something stupid. And his village was destroyed by this big army who's taking over the world. And you find your way, because you are a nobleman. And once you get to this new city, and they're like, we'll finish your training. And then you meet up with other people, and then you have to go along to, beat the bad empire or whatever. But it's the dating sim part of it that gets you. It's a good game. It is really good. Old school 4-disc for the PS1. Long story short,
4-disc kills me.
The dating sim. It was throwing a dating simulator into a standard JRPG Final Fantasy style turn-based game. And it was so much fun to stop in each city and date all the people that you can date to make your weapons better. And you had to. So fast forward to a year ago. I moved into my house about 2 years ago.
That's a good one.
I started watching a YouTube channel called The Stupendium. Wonderful music channel, parody channel. Does great music. He came out with one for a game I didn't know. It was called Only Cans. So of course I had to dig around on Steam to see what I could find. Oh, I found it. It's a free game. Please, go on Steam. If you're 18 and older, and download Only Cans. It's not really inappropriate.
It can just be awkward if your parents walk in while you're playing.
Yes, it's just noisy.
Oh no, the eyebrows.
It's noisy. It's suggestive. It's suggestive themes. And basically, all of the controls for this game are left and right arrow on your keyboard. That's it. You play the whole game, left and right. It's a rhythm game. And if you couldn't tell by the name Only Cans, it's Only Fans, but for cans. So the cans get all dressed up. They all have different personalities. The German man was probably one of my favorites. Or the strawberry kiwi Japanese drink. That one was also particularly interesting. Putting pasties on a soda can is definitely an interesting touch. But it is a game you'll never forget. And isn't that the point? Isn't that truly the point? To play something for an unforgettable experience. For an experience that you'll never be able to replicate, it's a good one. So if you want a short, sweet rhythm game that has a very surprise ending that I won't even begin to spoil, go on Steam and download Only Cans. You'll not regret that 2 hours of your life you just wasted. What about you, Zenith?
So I distracted Kevin part of the way through. See if you can find where he realizes what I'm looking up on my screen.
When I spot the heart shattering game he decided to pull up on Google.
Yeah, so I pulled up a little game that, like, you were talking about dating sims, and I was like, oh boy, dating sim, blacksmith. Kevin, have you ever played a little game called Boyfriend Dungeon?
I have heard of it.
So the whole idea of Boyfriend Dungeon is you play as this guy who he moves into town. I think you're a man. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't have a gender. I can't remember if, like, you pick at the beginning or whatever. But basically, you're kind of depressed. Your family's like, "Oh, hey, we're going to send you to go live with your cousin or uncle, some family member who it's like, oh, they'll help you, like, get out of your comfort zone, that kind of stuff." And you start to meet these people who are actually weapons.
I gotta pause you there for a second, because the trope of, like, you know what, you're too weird to be around your family, we're gonna send you to be with your uncle. It's such a freaking what do you call it? It's such a cliche at this point for games. I'm sorry, continue, but I just had to say that.
But, like, so you have all of these weapons, basically, that you find, and you can, like, build up your relationships with them. They have different skills. They're all different types of weapons. So, like, you have a guy who's, like, a rapier. You have this girl who's a dagger. You have, like, all these different weapons that like, you can go through and use. And my only problem with it was that it is a roguelike game.
Oh, rough.
And so I'm not the biggest roguelike person.
I'll give you that. It's a rough one.
Uh-huh. But it was, like, really interesting because there was, like, just a bunch of different, like, weapons that you could date. And so basically, like, you go to this dungeon to battle with them and they turn into the weapon and you use them as the weapon, but then they're still talking to you while they're the weapon.
Oh gosh.
And, like, while you're in the dungeon, you can, like, go on dates with them, like, to this ice cream stand, or, like, oh, hey, here's this fountain over here. That's kind of nice.
It's all fun and games until you catch your son's wang in the trigger guard, Oh god.
So that was when you were talking about blacksmithing and
dating sims. Oh,
I was
gosh,
like, I wonder if Kevin's heard of a little thing
perfect.
called Boyfriend Dungeon.
It almost seems like they are related. Like, somebody
Right?
played Thousand Arms as a kid and went ahead and made that game just out of the idea. But
It sounds
that's
like
rough.
you told me the plot of Thousand Arms, and then I told somebody it, and they're like, you know what, that'd make a really great game. And then they made it based off of, like, the train of story,
man.
and they're like, I remember two things from what they told me:
Blacksmith weapons,
blacksmithing,
dating.
and dating.
And, like, you know what? That sword looking damn bangable.
And, like, the best part is they have, like, really, really good. So we don't have the technology to pull this up for you guys right now. Eventually, we'll figure it out.
In editing, probably later.
Don't count on it.
Don't count on it.
Honestly, my computer's being so slow right here. I'm not even going to try and pull up. I was going to pull up for you the transformations of when you are introduced to these characters. Because, like, you find them as the weapons, and then they transform into the people. And it's very, like, anime magic girl transformations.
Oh, jeez. So in my mind, for some reason, when I think transformation, I always think of the covers of those Animorph books.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And, like, it's just one of those things that once you get stuck in your head from your childhood, it never changes. So, like, anytime I see, oh, this person is becoming a werewolf, it doesn't even matter if they actually show you the transformation. For me, it's the Animorph transformation.
Yep.
Like, there's no blood or skin or anything. Oh, you're a bird now.
So, the next weird game I feel like talking to you about is a series that I will go into more depth on because, my God. But have you ever heard of a little series called Danganronpa?
I believe you have begun to tell me about this one in the past.
So I think I've started and then stopped myself because I was like, no, we need this
one. This one
recording.
has to be on the show. Yes.
Okay, so the basic, like, without any spoilers for Danganronpa, is your character, totally normal, ordinary dude. They rub it in your face how totally ordinary and normal your dude is. He gets accepted into this school for exceptional students. Everybody here is the best at something. So you have like the best, and like I'm talking like stupid best of things. Like you have best martial artist, which is like, okay, that makes sense. But then you have best hall monitor. Yep, they're going to this school. You have the number one biker gang leader is going to this school.
How do you become the number one biker? You just stab the rest of everybody else? It's like you stabbed every other gang leader in town. You're definitely number one.
But yeah, but they're all high school students. And our character constantly is like talking about, oh, I'm completely average, blah, 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 blah. Their whole thing for why they've been invited to the school is like, oh, you won a lottery to get in, so therefore you are quote unquote.
You're basically the number one average person.
Exactly. And the whole thing is like, oh, well, you're the number one lucky student because you won the lottery to come here. And so like that's their thing. It's like, oh, you're you're the lucky student. And so they get to the school and they're like, okay, you know, you get introduced, that kind of stuff. And like your character like passes out as you're like starting, you wake up in the classroom and like immediately start to notice things are, you know, pretty sus. All the windows have these like giant metal coverings over them that are like bolted over the top. And, you know, it's like this 2D animated game. And so it's like very like artistic, like, my gosh, are those nuts and bolts over the like metal plating of the windows ginormous and ridiculous.
Oh my goodness.
But you then, you know, you go to the school assembly where you are informed that congratulations, you've been selected to take part in a killing game where so there, I think it's 12 or 16 other students and they're all the best, and basically it's like, oh, there are these like timetables, and so basically you guys are trapped in this school, and the only way you get out is if you murder one of the other students, and get away with it. Because after each murder, once the body is discovered, there is a class trial, and at the end of the trial, you have to vote for who you think committed the murder.
Jeez.
And if you choose the correct person, the murderer gets murdered.
Wait. This is a show or a game?
This is a game.
This is a game? Oh my goodness.
And if you choose the wrong person and the murderer isn't voted for, then everybody else dies and the murderer gets to go free.
Oh.
So that's the only way you can escape.
Huh. Interesting.
And there are 3 games. So that was the kind of plot for the first game. Ish. I kept it loose because I'm going to go into more details on one of my times for weird games. Another great one that I absolutely love, that I think I texted you about this before we even started going to do the podcast, was a series called the Zero Escape series.
Yes, I do remember you back in the day when we used to work together. I do remember you telling me about this.
And so this game, its whole thing is, the setup for the game is it is a puzzle escape room, and it has kind of like storybook in between. So you'll do, you know, story, and you have branching paths. And so it's like depending on which room you go through and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're trying to escape from, there's this person, Zero, who has put you into this game they call the nonary game. And you have to try and get through. There's always an escape condition. And so you're going through trying to meet that escape condition.
Okay.
Whether it be, oh, I'm trying to find a certain door, or I'm trying to, get a certain, I'm trying to be very vague because the second and third game, it becomes much more specific for how it is. But the first game, it's very interesting because it's very math based with the whole. So everybody there are 9 characters. In the first game, the whole thing is 999. There are 9 people, 9 doors, and 9 hours to escape before you're on a boat that's sinking.
Okay. So it's pretty much you have this X amount of time where everybody dies.
Yep. And everybody has a bracelet that has a number on it, 1 through 9. And doors will have a number on them. Okay. And a minimum of 3 people have to go through a door. And I think a maximum of 5 people can. But basically, you have to get your numbers to add up to whatever number's on the door. And the doors also only go 1 to 9, but you're trying to find the number 9 door to make it through. And so it's like, okay, well, math-wise, that doesn't work very quickly. If you're the person with number 8, you have to find, or you're the person with number 9. But so what it does is it rolls over. And so as soon as you hit, say your number adds up to 14, your actual number would be 5, because then the 2 numbers just get combined once you roll over past 10.
Okay.
And so there's all this math because basically in the stress and everything, characters start disappearing or dying. And so you kind of start to math out wait, who could have gone through this door to murder this person? Okay, the person who's murders, their number is this. Who else? So okay, it's got to be 2 other people have to have helped murder them. So then you sit here and you're doing the math because you're okay, so it could be this person and this person, their number plus the person who's dead could get in the door, or it's this person and this person. And so you start to suspect people of oh, these people, these people could be murderers. And so then when it's oh, what door do you want to go in? And somebody's oh, I'm going to go in this door. And you're suddenly I don't want to go in that door. I don't know about that. Yeah. And so it's a really, really good game because, the puzzle game mechanics are really interesting.
Plus, that distrust for the other players.
Uh-huh.
That distrust for the people around you is such a good way to set up a game. That's why Among Us was so popular.
Right.
That distrust. There's also a brand new version of Among Us that just came out on Steam. It's called Imposter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a legit freaking beautiful rendition of it. They made a graphically beautiful version of an Imposter. So it's all a first person game now. Mm-hmm. It's an FPS now. It's crazy.
That is wild. And so originally the reason I talked to you about it, so the second game really goes into more of your kind of thing, but the first game, it kind of starts you off a little gently it starts to give you this idea of so there are theories within, different groups of scientists and that kind of stuff, that there is kind of this neural cloud that everybody and everything is connected to. And the game is really cool because it gives lots of examples, somebody who died on the Titanic wrote books about a similar ship sinking in the exact same conditions as the Titanic sunk. Yes. And there's it has all these real life examples of different phenomena that happened across barriers where it shouldn't have been able to, and that kind of stuff.
Weird pause, that book is real?
Yes.
It's actually a real thing, and it was actually called The Sinking of the Gigantic.
Uh-huh.
If I remember properly. Yep. Yes, and it was within 50 nautical miles of where the Titanic actually sank. Yes, it is an incredible freaking historical coincidence.
Yeah, and so they have a bunch of these other scientific ones. I can't remember. There's one chemical that they had it under super close lab conditions across the world, and one of them got contaminated in one country, and then all of a sudden within, I think it was 24 or 48 hours, all of the other ones in other labs across the world, completely no connection to each other, started also showing that same contamination.
Yeah.
And there's just a bunch of crazy stuff like that they show.
Absolutely. There's a sorry, this is another part of my intense nerdiness is quantum mechanics. Not to get too deep into it, but there's a theory within quantum physics that is called quantum entanglement. Basically saying that certain particles oscillate on the same frequency and on the same plane. So if that's the case, groups of particles can be entangled together so that you can have basically faster than light communication between them. If you were to give the stimuli to the one on Earth, the one you've tangled it to across the entire universe will have the same stimuli at the same time.
Yep.
It's an incredible prospect.
That is the entire premise of the game, because I'll go into a little bit of spoilers just to kind of like, kind of show Kevin how much he literally just like talked about what the game is. But so the whole idea is, so you are in the future escaping this puzzle that a group of kids was over 10 years ago, and you are psychically linked to one of the kids who is trying to escape the 10 years ago in the past. And so as you are like solving puzzles, they are like solving the puzzles, and they are like managing to escape and that kind of stuff through time and space. And then I'm trying to think. So I'll just leave it there because I'll definitely dive deeper in.
That actually surprisingly reminds me of Prince of Persia and the Sands of Time.
Mhm.
Another wonderful game, another full friggin' collection I bought off Steam recently was the entire Prince of Persia series. But we should continue that probably on our next episode.
Yep, I was just about to say. Hey, thank you guys for hopping in. Next time we will have a more accurate representation of what the episodes are going to be. This one we're kind of all over the place just because we wanted to give you guys a chance to get to know us, kind of find out what Kevin likes, what I like, whether it be video games, movies, anime,
And we'll
strange
find
little things.
We'll find more of that groove as we continue to go along.
Mhm.
Please, comment, subscribe, let us know what you might want to hear us talk about. Would be greatly appreciated. And please, join us again on the next episode where we continue to have nerdy conversations and continue to gawk about what this year has in store for game drops and new content.
So much nerdy stuff happening, and I hope you guys will come and enjoy it with us. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I'd appreciate if you liked, commented, subscribed, followed, all the things on all the platforms. I appreciate you watching this video. It truly does mean a lot to me, and I hope to see you in the next video.